This show is part of OnePlace, a daily network of focused briefings across the stories people follow most.
Welcome to the Daily Pulse. I'm host Ben, and I'm joined by host A. Today, we are tracking the massive shifts in tech, global trade, and the future of work.
Billionaires look to space for AI data centers.
Amazon adds surcharges as fuel costs spike globally.
Trump targets drug makers with massive new tariffs.
Experts warn of recession from the Iran conflict.
Damon John shares his intense daily biohacking routine.
McKinsey uses AI to flatten corporate management layers.
A SpaceX lawsuit could redefine private market gains.
Engineers face burnout while managing multiple AI agents.
First up today, tech giants like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are looking toward the stars to solve a very terrestrial problem: the massive energy and land requirements of artificial intelligence. Musk and Bezos are advocating for space-based data centers, arguing that the vacuum of space offers unlimited cooling and the sun provides endless solar power without the environmental footprint of earthbound facilities. McKinsey and Company estimates the space economy could reach $1.8 trillion by 2035, and major players are already moving. Blue Origin recently filed for permission to launch 50,000 solar-powered data center satellites. Musk has been vocal on social media, claiming that global electricity demand for AI simply cannot be met on the ground without imposing significant hardships on local communities and the environment.
While the vision sounds like science fiction, it is facing heavy skepticism from other industry leaders. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman has called the idea of orbital data centers ridiculous, and theoretical physicists point out the immense technical hurdles. Beyond the staggering cost of launching GPU-loaded satellites, there are concerns about data latency and the physical difficulty of maintaining hardware in orbit. However, Google is also in the mix with Project Suncatcher, aiming for a low Earth orbit AI data center by 2027. Proponents argue that because space is, spacious, there are no real estate costs or zoning laws to navigate. Critics like Kathleen Curley from Georgetown note that while it is not physically impossible, the complexity and expense might outweigh the benefits of free solar energy.
Next up, Amazon is the latest major carrier to adjust its pricing in response to the ongoing conflict in Iran, announcing a 3.5% fuel and logistics surcharge for third-party sellers. This new fee takes effect on April 17th and will primarily impact those using the Fulfillment by Amazon service. The company stated that it has absorbed rising costs for as long as possible, but can no longer ignore the spike in fuel prices triggered by the war. This move follows similar actions by United Parcel Service and FedEx, who have also hiked their rates. Even the United States Postal Service is getting in on the trend, announcing an 8% fuel surcharge starting April 26th that is expected to remain in place until early 2027.
The impact of these surcharges will be felt most acutely by small and medium-sized businesses that rely on Amazon's massive logistics network. Starting May 2nd, the fee will expand to include sellers using the Buy with Prime and multi-channel fulfillment options. Amazon insists that its surcharge is meaningfully lower than those applied by other carriers, but for sellers already operating on thin margins, any increase is a blow. The company maintains that it remains committed to seller success and keeping prices low for consumers, but the reality of global energy instability is forcing their hand. As the war in Iran continues to disrupt global supply chains, these temporary charges are becoming a standard defensive measure for the world's largest retail and shipping giants.
Now let's shift to Donald Trump is ramping up his economic pressure on the pharmaceutical industry, threatening a 100% tariff on drug makers that refuse to strike deals to lower U.S. prices. This aggressive policy specifically targets branded drugs and their active ingredients, while exempting generic medicines for at least 1 year. The goal is to force companies to onshore production and enter pricing agreements with the White House. Under the proposed plan, companies that increase domestic manufacturing would initially face a 20% tariff, which would then scale up to the full 100% over 4 years. So far, 17 drug makers have already secured exemptions, including industry giants like Pfizer and Eli Lilly, who have signed 3-year deals to avoid the levies.
While the administration frames this as a win for consumers who pay nearly triple what patients in other developed nations pay, industry groups are sounding the alarm. The mid-sized Biotech Alliance of America warns that this creates an unfair two-tiered system. Large pharmaceutical companies have the resources to negotiate and the diversified portfolios to absorb costs. But mid-sized firms lack that flexibility. These smaller players have 180 days to negotiate deals, compared to 120 days for the big guys. This move comes as the White House faces mounting pressure to address the rising cost of living, which has been exacerbated by high gas prices and other tariff-related increases. Trump has pinned these economic struggles on his predecessors, promising that these drug pricing policies alone could shift the political landscape.
Moving on, the economic fallout from the war with Iran is reaching a critical point, with experts from Oxford Economics warning of a potential global recession and widespread fuel rationing. Their latest research paints a grim picture, showing that tanker traffic through the vital Strait of Hormuz has already plummeted by 98%. If this key shipping route remains closed, the current shortfall of 2 million barrels of oil per day could rise sharply, leading to a global shortage of 12% of usual consumption. This disruption is projected to slow world GDP growth to just 1.4% by 2026, while the US and Canada are somewhat insulated due to their domestic production and refining capacity. Emerging economies in the Asia-Pacific and sub-Saharan Africa are extremely vulnerable.
We are already seeing the first signs of this crisis on the ground. In Bangladesh, drivers are queuing for hours at gas stations, and universities have been forced to close to conserve diminishing fuel reserves. Egypt has also taken proactive steps, ordering shops and restaurants to close early to save energy. Oxford Economics predicts that the need for rationing will accelerate rapidly from the fourth month of the conflict onward. The gap between supply and demand could widen to 13 million barrels per day within 6 months. This unprecedented shortage would trigger massive supply chain disruptions and hit global activity levels hard. International allies are meeting to find a way to end the blockade, but without a swift resolution, the world faces a prolonged period of economic instability and energy scarcity.
Next up, Daymond John, the founder of Fubu and a staple on Shark Tank, recently shared a look into his high-intensity daily routine that focuses heavily on biohacking and longevity. At 57 years old, John manages 3 businesses and travels 250 days a year, yet he maintains a strict intermittent fasting schedule. He typically only eats between 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. and incorporates a 24 to 36-hour fast once a week. His mornings start at 6:15 a.m., but he avoids his phone to focus on his mental state. Instead of a personal trainer, he opts for short bursts of explosive exercises like box jumps and push-ups throughout the day. This disciplined approach is a far cry from his early days, handing out flyers in Queens for $2 an hour.
John's journey from sewing wool caps in his mother's house to generating $350 million in revenue is a testament to his work ethic, which he now applies to his health. Even with his massive success and investments in over 30 brands, he still walks an hour to his Miami office when he isn't on the road. He doesn't take a formal lunch, choosing to work straight through until his eating window opens in the afternoon. His routine highlights a growing trend among high-level executives who use biohacking to maintain the stamina required for constant travel and decision-making. For John, it's about maximizing every minute, whether he's in a faculty meeting or squeezing in a quick nap to recharge during a grueling 250-day travel schedule.
Now let's shift to McKinsey & Company is signaling a major shift in corporate structure, suggesting that AI will lead to what some are calling the Great Flattening. Senior partner Alexis Krivkovich explains that for the past decade, companies have added multiple layers of management between the CEO and the front line, which has slowed down decision-making and increased costs. AI agents are now providing leaders with a superhuman capacity to manage much larger teams, allowing organizations to strip away those middle layers. This isn't just about cutting costs, it's about speed. By using AI to facilitate connections and automate routine tasks in departments like HR, finance, and legal, companies can reallocate resources to innovation and move much faster in a competitive market.
This trend is already taking hold at major firms like IBM, where digital workers are being embedded alongside 150,000 human consultants. IBM's leadership expects entirely new management structures to emerge, as human managers will no longer oversee teams in the traditional sense. Similarly, the AI native platform factory is building autonomous coding agents for firms like EY and NVIDIA, predicting that org charts will soon condense horizontally. In industries like life sciences, squads of agents are being used to supercharge research and development. While the transition may be disruptive, the promise is a more agile corporate environment where decisions are made instantly by data-driven systems rather than being bogged down in a hierarchy of human approvals and bureaucratic red tape.
Moving on, a legal battle over a disputed stake in SpaceX shares is highlighting the complexities of private market gains as the company moves toward a massive IPO. The lawsuit involves Trellis Software and Clearlist Holdings, stemming from a 2020 deal where Trellis provided software in exchange for equity. As SpaceX's valuation has soared toward a potential $1.75 trillion, that stake has become incredibly valuable, jumping from $434 million to over $800 million in just 1 year. Trellis alleges that Clearlist is trying to push them out to keep the upside for themselves, while Clearlist claims Trellis failed to deliver on their end of the bargain. This case is a prime example of the friction that occurs when soaring valuations meet complex, multi-layered ownership structures.
With SpaceX recently filing confidentially to go public, the pressure to resolve this dispute is mounting. The outcome could set a significant precedent for the secondary market, where early backers and service providers often hold shares through side agreements and investment vehicles, rather than direct ownership. As startups stay private longer and rack up massive paper gains, these types of legal challenges are expected to become more common. At stake is not just the billions of dollars in this specific case, but the enforceability of contractual rights in the booming private equity space. If the case isn't settled before the IPO, it could complicate the distribution of wealth from what is expected to be one of the largest public offerings in history, affecting how minority investors are treated across the entire tech ecosystem.
Finally today, while AI is often marketed as a tool to lighten our workloads, some of the industry's most experienced engineers are reporting the opposite. Simon Willison, the co-creator of the Django web framework, recently shared that using AI coding agents is actually mentally exhausting. He explained that while he can now run 4 different agents in parallel to solve complex problems, the level of oversight required is draining. By 11 a.m., he often feels completely wiped out for the day. This intensity comes from the fact that managing these agents effectively requires every bit of his 25 years of experience. It's a paradox where the ability to produce more work in less time is leading to faster burnout rather than the promised life of leisure.
Willison isn't alone in this struggle. He's spoken with many other engineers who are losing sleep because they feel compelled to keep their AI agents working through the night. This AI-pilled obsession is creating a new kind of pressure, where the limit is no longer how much a human can type, but how much they can supervise. Researchers from Harvard and NYU have warned that these tools might stretch workers too thin by accelerating output without reducing the cognitive load. While visionaries like Vinod Khosla suggest that future generations may not even need jobs thanks to AI, the current reality for those on the front lines is a more demanding and intense work environment. Finding personal limits in this high-speed era is becoming a critical skill for survival in the tech industry.
That's the Daily Pulse for today. Join us again tomorrow for more essential updates. For now, I'm host Shelley and I'm host B. Have a great